بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. اللهم اغفر لنا ولشيخنا ولجميع المسلمين. قال المؤلف رحمه الله: كتاب الصيام. يجب صوم رمضان برؤية هلاله، فإن لم يرمع صحو ليلة 30 أصبحوا مفطرين، وإن حال دونه غيم أو قتر فظاهر المذهب يجب صومه، وإن روي نهار فهو لليلة المقبلة، وإذا رآه أهل بلد لزم الناس كلهم الصوم. ويصام برؤية عدل ولو أنثى، فإن صاموا بشهادة واحد 30 يوما فلم يرى الهلال، أو صاموا لأجل غيم لم يفطروا. ومن رأى وحده هلال رمضان وردوا قوله، أو رأى هلالا شوال صام.
الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على خاتم الأنبياء أشرف المرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين، أما بعد. In the last dars we talked about the ahkam of dukhul Ramadan. So this is bab siyam, but we are really discussing the fard sawm, yani that which is obligatory, which is Ramadan. We'll talk about the nawafil from the siyam later inshallah in the bab. So we mentioned the masail of dukhul Ramadan have to do with a few different things. One of them being sighting the moon, and the other being completing the days of Shawwal, who can sight, whose sighting is accepted. Today we will go into some more fun and interesting masail. If you enjoy knowledge, you will enjoy today's dars. If you're not a big fan of knowledge, you'll probably be pretty bored today. So the Muallif mentioned that if it is not sighted, what is not sighted? The moon for Ramadan ma sahwin, yani, and it is clear. Sahwin layla, yani a clear night. طيب. 30. So it will then be the clear night of the 30th. طيب. Then you wake up, yani when is the night of the 30th? This is the night before the 30th. طيب. So the next day would either be the 1st of Ramadan or the 30th of Sha'ban. طيب. You understand? Islamically, the night comes before the day. So today in America, we would say it's Wednesday night. But Shari'an, this is Thursday night. It is the night of Thursday. The day comes afterwards. So if on the night before the 30th, which is the night of the 30th, Islamically, you do not see the moon for Ramadan, what do? You, as the Muallif says, that asbahu, you wake up in the next day in a state of not fasting. You are not going to fast. The next day is going to be the 30th of Sha'ban. And I didn't find khilaf ulama on this issue. I mean, I looked to the books of the Hanafiya, Shawafiya, Malikiya, Hanabila and things. If a moon is not sighted by anybody on a clear night, ijma'an, you will not fast the next day because it is not the 1st of Ramadan. It is the 30th of Sha'ban, and there are ahadith on this adillah that are clear, and there's ijma', so I'm not going to go deep into it. Tayyib, what if somebody decides that it could have been the 1st of Ramadan, right? Because Sha'ban could have been 29. Nobody saw the moon, but I'm really pious, so I'm going to fast the next day. La. There are ahadith that forbid fasting on Yom Al-Shakk, the day of doubt. Meaning this day, it was a possibility it could have been Ramadan, but the hujjah was not established. Tayyib. What if there is a sighting? Right? Let's say one brother comes forward and says, I saw the moon. Tayyib. And the qadi, the alim, he listens to him and he finds the man is an alcoholic. I'll give you an easy one, right? He's a drunk. Tayyib. Is his sighting accepted? No. La. يعني حتى حالك اللحية وهذه أشياء من فاسق. طيب, so sighting is not accepted. So then what happens? Do you fast that day? As a ummah? No. Many of the A'imma said it's haram to fast the Yom Al-Shakk. The madhab is it's makruh, it's karaha. Right? But this is something for a clear night. Tayyib. Now, if there is no sighting, but it is a cloudy night. Okay, so which night are we talking about? The night of the 30th. Right? For us, meaning on the 29th of Sha'ban, when the 29th day of Sha'ban is finished. 29th day, Maghrib happens, the night of the 30th enters. We go out to sight the moon, but it's cloudy. Right? Now in our time, usually we coordinate with different countries in different areas, so it's not going to be cloudy everywhere. Right? But we need to understand the ahkam. In the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba radiyallahu, they were just looking at a city basically. And even in the time of the Khulafa, they were looking at, in the beginning of the Khulafa anyway, you will find during the Khilafah Abu Bakr, for example, nowhere outside the Arabian Peninsula is being discussed. Okay? So it could be very possible that the whole city or the whole area would be cloudy. So if it's cloudy and people go out and they don't see the moon, what happens then? The Jumhur of the ulama of Islam, they take the view that you will not fast the next day. Hanafiya, Shawafiya, Malikiya, and some of the Hanabila, including Shaykh al-Islam Taqiyuddin ibn Taymiyyah and even Ibn Muflih, the famous Ibn Muflih, and also Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen, and both of my personal teachers when I studied Zad with, both of them took the view. But this is not the madhab. And this is something I purposely skip in other books just because I don't want to sometimes overcomplicate things for the tullab, but inshallah we're growing. So here the madhab is you fast the next day. Right? And they have adillah. There are adillah. I personally did not take this view because when I first studied Zad, I took the view as the Jamhur because the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is regarding if it's cloudy, then complete 30 days. But there is a book that Ibn al-Jawzi, not Ibn al-Qayyim, but Ibn Jawzi, wrote on this issue, and he brought many adillah for it, including the Sahih hadith of Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu anhuma, they used to do it. Also, Abu Ya'la wrote a whole book on this. Ibn Abdul Hadi, the great muhaddith, wrote a whole book on this. I find the adillah strong. But this is one of those issues where you have adillah on both sides. And really, as one of my teachers that I recently spoke to about this issue said, it's best to go with the Jamhur on this one because the marfu' ahadith, the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, clarify fasting 30 days on the day where it is cloudy. Khair, because of the level of this dars, we're not going to go deep into this, but I want to introduce this issue. So what is the Jamhur, including many of the Hanabila, is that if it's cloudy, you complete 30 days of Sha'ban. Tayyib. Now we get into what if the moon is sighted during the daytime. Tayyib, you see the moon before Maghrib. Here the Muallif says that if it is sighted, then it is for the next night. فهو لليلة مقبلة مقبلة, the one that is coming. مقبلة ليس المادية, not the one past but the one coming. So we need to be clear about what does that mean. So if you sight the moon on the 29th, still daytime. We're not going to look for the moon on the 28th and stuff, so we're talking about it's always between the 29th and the 30th. Usually you wouldn't have to sight the moon because you're going to complete 30 days. So on the 29th of Sha'ban, that night we were going to go out and check for the moon before Maghrib. The madhab is that this discussion is even before Zawal. Any time, and there is a lot of khilaf and discussions, I'm saving you all of that, right? So in the daytime you see the moon. You're out at Asr time. Usually at daytime you cannot see the moon, especially the first night. But let's say somebody sees it. They come forward and they say, we saw the moon. Tayyib. Does that mean you start fasting right there? Everybody stop what you're doing. It's Ramadan, start fasting. Or if it is seen on the 29th of Ramadan. Tayyib. So meaning it's still daytime. Ramadan can be 29 or 30 days. In the daytime, let's say after Dhuhr or before Dhuhr even, somebody sights the moon. Does that mean we tell everybody, yo, break your fasts, it's Eid, hug? La. As the Muallif says, the moon belongs to the next night. there is a lot of discussion, hikmah here, but I didn't find khilaf on this issue between the madahib. Between the madahib al-arba, I didn't find khilaf. I did find some, I'm going to say, shadh or some very rare opinions of some ulama that did take the view that that will belong to the last night. Meaning if you see it on the 29th day, it becomes the moon of the 29th. But this is a really rare view. I don't want to say ijma' because it's not ijma'an, but باتفاق, يعني with the consensus of the madahib al-arba, the four madahib, this will belong to the next. And I found some Shafi'i that took views here and there, and others that refuted them, and so on. But the madhab is no doubt that it does not belong to that night. This is all the muallif says here. Even in Rawd al-Murbi', there is not a lot of discussion about whether it's out. So now let me read the matan, and then I want you guys to explain something to me, and I'm making a point here. So it says that if the ru'ya, and in ru'ya naharan, if it is seen in the daytime, فهو يعني الهلال ليلة المقبلة, يعني this is for the next night. طيب. So that means if you see it on the 29th in the daytime, 29th of Sha'ban, for example. طيب. In the daytime, you saw the moon, 29th of Sha'ban. That night, are you still going to go check for the moon? Because it's the moon for the next night. And the next day, you fast. Wrong. Right? And the point I'm making here is the importance of having a teacher when you study a matan. Many of our brothers, myself included, would pick up a book back before I studied with shuyukh and things, and we would kind of read it, and we would take the apparent of the wording, and we think, I'm good, I understand. But really, we do not understand. In the sharh and the explanation of al-Iqna', al-Buyuti explained this in great detail. And then after reading his explanation, I went to the different books of the madahib, and all four of the madahib said the daytime sighting of the moon is not a hujjah for the sighting. Okay? Now there are some times where it will be sighted right at Maghrib time and things like this. I'm not going to go into details there, right? But if you just take the general sighting, why? There are first adillah, clear proofs, where Umar ibn Khattab radiyan, for example, in his time, it was sighted in the daytime and he did not accept it. And he wrote to some of his governors saying that if it's sighted in the daytime, do not accept it. Then there is a book, Al-Idah al-Dala'il fi Farq Bayn al-Masail. It's one of the very, very amazing books that I love to read. Why? It's not like we're used to very simplistic ideas, and we have shuruh that explain the matan, or we have kutub of adillah that give proofs. But this book is written just to show the differences between masail that are close. It's very interesting. For example, like the urine of a baby boy who's still breastfeeding, the hukm is different than a baby girl. We know this, we know the dalil, but what are some of the hikam behind it, and what are some of the distinctions that you may not understand just by, well, this both is urine, right? This is one of the very beautiful books, and that's why I encourage brothers to read and buy books and find out about scholars and find like most brothers have never even heard of this book. I'm not talking about like average, I'm talking about tullab, ilm and ulama, but it's such a beneficial book. My father used to tell me some advice that could be taken as good or bad. He used to tell me, whatever you do it really well. If you're going to be a gangster, do it to the best. Kill people, murder, do something, rob banks, do it really well. But if you're going to be good, be really good. Like, know your stuff, be dedicated to your religion, right? Today we have tullab, ilm and things, but they're like, yeah. There's khilaf on the issue, khalas. La, and you understand the mas'ala. So here the mas'ala is something very interesting, where the moon sightings in the daytime, as the Shaykh he mentions, they are very commonly mistaken. And because it's not clear, the sighting, most of the time when you see somebody who, and this is something he's explaining the hikmah of it. I told you why is the adillah. The why is the adillah, but this is one of the wisdoms of it. Right? So he said that a lot of times the daytime, because there's no clarity and understanding of the moon, a lot of times people mistaken other things for the moon in the daytime more than the night. And this is one of the wisdoms behind it. But khair, the mas'ala is that the daytime sighting of the moon will not be a hujjah by itself. It can be taken as supporting evidence, like you can say there was a sighting, okay, and then somebody else comes with a sighting at night, and you can say, well, there was also this one, and so on, in a discussion. But by itself, it will not be an evidence. Tayyib, and I mentioned that there is the dalil of Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, and that is reported in Ibn Abi Shayba and Ad-Darqutni and Al-Bayhaqi and Al-Kubra and Bazar. I looked up the takhrij to make sure the hadith is sahih when Umar ibn Khattab gave this fatwa and gave this hukm, and it was accepted by the Sahaba ijma'an, nobody objected to it. Ibn Mulaqqin, who's also known as Ibn Nahwi, in Badr al-Munir, he looked at the sanad and said this is sahih, he authenticated it. So this is the dalil why. I explained the wisdom, but that's not why. The why is the clear evidence. Tayyib. Then the muallif talks about that if a person from a balad, yani from a land, sees it, it is obligatory upon everybody. And we discussed global and local and the whole issue last dars, so I'm not going to go back over that. But just a point, again, as me and Sheikh Adam were talking about right before we began the dars, when we talk about global and local, and we, my son checks the comments, he always showed me some comment, people were like, oh, classic, this, that. People don't understand the mas'ala, suratul mas'ala. When you talk about local today in America, we're talking about all of Northern America, including parts of Central America. Most matla' that is discussed by most of the halal sighting committees will include Hawaii, will include the Caribbean, will include Mexico, will include parts like El Salvador and those Central American countries, will include America and Canada, all the way into Alaska. And when you're talking about local, in the time of the Sahaba, the adillah you're presenting for local sighting, you're talking about a khilaf between Damashq and Medina. How far is Damashq from Medina? And how far is Alaska from Guadalajara, or El Salvador, Guatemala, right? So you don't make sense in your adillah that you're using. Okay? And when you're talking about global in the time of the Sahaba, you're talking about the Arabian Peninsula and a part of it only. Right? Today you're talking about from Fiji to Hawaii. Okay? Impossible to implement that. Fiji's already fasted their day by the time Hawaii would see it in Ramadan, or they've already finished eating lunch and maybe having dinner by the time you sight the moon in Hawaii, right? Or something like that. Either way, it's not practical. You cannot. It would always be a makeup then. So this is why Shaykh al-Islam Taqiyuddin ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn Muflih and Ibn Rajab and others, Imma and Ulama, looking at these adillah, they presented a great amount of evidence. And Ibn Taymiyyah, as he took the view, and this is one of the views of the Hanabila, and this is what I take, is that the sighting is applicable for the area, shared horizons, this would include whatever is there, and every place east of it. Because west of it. I confused myself. That was a test. I was just seeing who's paying attention. So the sighting is applicable for every place and everywhere west of it. It is not applicable east. So if it's sighted in Somalia, it will be applicable in Europe and America and so on, because we are west, and the way the cycle of the moon is, it was impossible for it to have been sighted a place east of a place without it having gone over that place. But it is very possible that it would never be possible to be sighted on east of it. And you can look at the graphs of how the cycle of the moon is to understand. Tayyib. Then the muallif continues that you fast, yusamu bi ru'yati adlin. Now he doesn't say shakhs wahid or so on, but this is why matan is concise. He says that you fast with the sighting of one person. And the dalil for this is a clear hadith, the report in Abu Dawood and Ad-Darimi, Ibn Hibban, Imam Al-Tabrani in his Awsat, Ad-Darqutni, Al-Hakim, both graded to be Sahih. Al-Bayhaqi also reports in his Sunan Al-Kabir, and Ibn Mulaqqin again in Badr al-Munir, he discussed the sanad in great detail and said no doubt it's a Sahih hadith. Ibn Umar says the people are out looking for the moon, I saw it. Nobody but him. He didn't say anything about being cloudy or anything like that, but he said, I saw it, I informed the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ said to fast the next day. Tayyib. Is this sighting for beginning Ramadan or ending Ramadan? Beginning, because the hadith says that Rasulullah ﷺ, he amara nas, he ordered the people siyamihi, to fast because of it. Tayyib. So, now, if it shows that this is for beginning of Ramadan, this is a dalil for beginning Ramadan. There is a hadith of Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma and some other adillah that we'll get into later when we talk about Eid. We're not there yet, but just to let you know, which shows that Rasulullah wanted a second witness for ending Ramadan. So some ulama took this hadith and they said, khalas, one witness for both. But that's wrong. And some said, no, you can't use one. They rejected the hadith of Ibn Umar, even though it's sahih, and they said, hadith of Ibn Abbas, they said, you need two. Well, that's wrong too, because you have to look at each hadith in context. Hadith of Ibn Umar is about beginning Ramadan, so mu'tamad of the madhab and what is correct, what is rajih, no doubt to this being a correct opinion, is that one witness is enough to begin Ramadan. But two witnesses are required to end Ramadan, yani to declare the Eid, the first of Shawwal. Tayyib, the Muallif says, وَلَوْ أُنْثَى, even if it is a woman. And this is a very interesting and important mas'ala. Can the witness of a single woman be enough to begin Ramadan? Yes. The two witnesses for women that is required is a shahada for example, in criminal cases in Islamic court matters. It doesn't mean this is mutlaqan on everything. This does not mean it's this is why there's a saying in English, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? So what happens with brothers, we learn one mas'ala and then everything, you bang with the same mas'ala. La, the sharia is very deep. When you look at the beginning and ending of Ramadan, there is no difference between a man and woman in their witness here. In some masail, the witness and testimony of women is preferred over men. I'm not going to go deep into that right now, but inshallah as you study mutun and books, we will get into those masail, right? Like there are some masail between zawja with zawj and things like this, where the witness and testimony of women is preferred over men. And in some masail, the witness of men is preferred over women regarding, for example, murder and things like those criminal cases. And this is the beauty of the Sharia. In the West, we have what we call equality, but in reality, it is hypocrisy, right? We wanna think everything's exactly the same, right? But as the West is realizing now, with these transgenders trying to play sports with women, that it's not the same. Men and women are not the same. We were made different. They're equally as important, right? If you didn't have women, what would happen? The world wouldn't be a damn thing, right? But if you didn't have man, he wouldn't work either. Equally as important for humanity. Woman has her own role. She's better in certain things. Mothering, nurturing, all those kinds of things. A man has his own role. He's better at other things. Don't make them the same. Equally as important, but not the same. So in the Sharia, understanding, because Allah is the Khaliq, He is the Creator. He knew men and their weaknesses and women and their weaknesses and men and their strength and women and their strength. So He gave different roles and different weight to the witnesses of different people at different times. Regarding sighting of the moon, there is no difference between men and women. They're equal sighting. Now some madhahib did take it as different, but this is what is rajih, and this is the mu'tamid of the madhab here. And in the shuruh and the explanations of that, they make an explanation as well that there is no difference between a slave and a free person. Even if somebody is enslaved, there is no difference there. In the Western society, when we take slaves and their witnesses, they were not accepted. This is how slavery was in the West. But in Islam, we say that even if somebody is a slave or they're free or they're imprisoned or this or that, we give equal rights to these. Right? If somebody sees the moon, they see the moon. Tayyib. And if it is, if the fasting began, and this is a very interesting mas'ala, with the shahada of one person, 30 yawman, and they did not see the moon and they started, and then 30 days are fasted and the moon is not sighted, right? Or it began with the cloudy night, as we gave the example earlier, meaning the 29th was cloudy and they fasted the 30th. We made that the first of Ramadan, like the hadith of Ibn Umar. Then they increase a fast from it if the moon is not sighted. Okay? So I will explain the mas'ala. I know it's difficult, but I will make it easy, inshaAllah. Tayyib. 29th of Sha'ban. One person sights it. Tayyib. So you begin fasting the first of Ramadan after 29 days of Shawwal. Now you get to 30 days of Ramadan. Now the next day would be what? Eid. But there's a problem. The moon was not sighted, and you only had one sighting to begin Ramadan. And how many sightings do you need to end Ramadan? 2. So here, you cannot say the month is 30 days, because the first day began with one sighting. Right? So now, what happens is you fast another day, because you did not have enough sightings to end Ramadan. What if you began Ramadan with 2 sightings and you fasted 30 days and nobody saw the moon? Then what happens? Then the next day is Eid. Because those 2 sightings to begin Ramadan were enough to end Ramadan. Clear? I know these are a little more complicated than Islam QA, but no, just kidding. With all due respect to the great work they're doing there, mashallah. Tayyib. Now we get to the mas'ala of cloudiness. We go back to that. So let's say it was cloudy on the 29th day and you took the opinion of the madhab and you fasted the next day. Tayyib. Now 30 days passed, no moon is seen. You began the fasting ihtiyatan, yani to be careful. Now you cannot say that was definitely an evidence, so you fast another day. Tayyib. These are rare masail, but it's in the matan, and you as developing tullab should learn them. Tayyib. If somebody sees the moon by themselves, one person, tayyib, and their testimony is rejected, tayyib, what do they do then? Right? Somebody goes, he's a drunk. I'm giving easy examples, right? Because drunk's pretty easy. I mean, I could give a little more fun examples, but I won't. Tayyib. So let's take a drunk. A drunk person goes and sees the moon, but he does see the moon. 29th of Sha'ban, he clearly, really saw it. He wasn't drunk that time, right? He goes to the Qadi, nobody else sees the moon. One drunk guy. He goes to the Qadi, and he's really happy, so now he's drunk again. And he tells the Qadi, I saw the moon. Tomorrow's Ramadan, right? Or tomorrow's Eid. And the Qadi is like, يعني شارب الخمر, يعني you drink alcohol, we can't accept your shahada, your witness. And he orders the people either not to fast, like if it's Sha'ban, or in end of Ramadan, he orders them to fast. What does this person do? Right? So what is correct? And there are many adillah, I'm not going to go deep into this. And I read this across the board. It will be obligatory upon that person to fast on the third, what will be for everybody else, the 30th of Sha'ban, because he saw it. So it's obligatory upon him. But it is not obligatory upon the ummah because his witness was not accepted. So he began fasting with people a day early, right? Right? Because he saw the moon on the night of the 30th. So the first of Ramadan for him was the 30th of Sha'ban for everybody else. Now Ramadan is ending. Now what does he do? Right? Let's say the people fast 30 days. Now on the 1st of Shawwal, right? For him is the 30th of Ramadan for the rest of the ummah. You understand the mas'ala? I want you to understand the surah al-mas'ala, the mas'ala, okay? So now he started a day early. The people started fasting a day later. What comes out to be after 30 days of his fasting, the 1st of Shawwal, no moon is sighted, is the 30th day of Ramadan for everybody else. What does he do? He fasts. He cannot be like, yeah, well, I'm done. No. He fasts. Because this is what he began with was not applicable, and now he has to follow the community for everything else. Right? Because the moon, sighting by everybody else, you need the two witnesses and so on. And these masail get a little complicated, but they're fun. And this is where knowledge develops. And inshallah we'll end here and we'll begin with who is obligated to fast at the next dars inshallah ta'ala. Jazakumullahu khairan.